Hi, good night. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing pretty well. Can't complain at this point. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty okay. The schools have closed today, so all these new news is popping up. How are things for you?
Pretty much the same. I caught wind of that news as well today. Um, Seems like things are changing every day, but doing the best I can to just kind of get through every single day. Every day seems to have its new challenges and things to get through, but I'm doing okay at this point.
Okay, all right. So in the last session, we covered a lot. We spoke about your need for self-care, at least for a self-care routine. We spoke about your dad's recovery and how that's affecting you and your home life. We also spoke about you feeling overwhelmed with your schedule as far as school, work, and your personal life is concerned. You can't seem to find a balance between the three. So tell me a little bit about how that has changed you since our last session.
Sure. So since our last session, things are, I don't want to say have changed drastically, but some have stayed the same and some have definitely changed a little bit.
Okay,
I would say, speaking of my dad, first of all, he's obviously getting further and further in his recovery with since he had neck and back surgery. Obviously, the time continues to go on. He's doing a little bit better and better each day, which is really great. I'm finding myself at this point not having to do as much for him as he's becoming a lot more independent and being able to move a lot more and get around the house. And he's actually able to drive now again, which is a huge help for him. And I think that's helping his mental health as well, because instead of being stuck inside all day, he's actually being able to go outside and run some errands and do some things for himself. For a really long time, I think he was feeling very dependent on myself and a bunch of others and he felt kind of bad about not being able to take care of himself. But at this point, seems to be something that is it's becoming in a more positive direction, I would say at this point. As for the other things in terms of self care, I actually have in the past couple of weeks since our last session, have really taken it upon myself to find some more time for myself to jot down some notes throughout my day, like we
that's
discussed.
good.
I ended up going a couple days after our session, went to the store and just picked up a small little notebook just to literally at the end of each day before I go to bed. I don't write much, but I write just a couple notes throughout my day. If it was a great day, if I had a tough day or a stressful day or anything like that, I just put it in my notes, and I find that that's helping me kind of stay on track a little bit because obviously at this point we're all incredibly busy between work and school and my personal life. Obviously, it's hard to find a little bit of time to breathe, but I find myself just being able to jot down a couple notes here and there at the end of each day is becoming really, really helpful for me. So that's pretty much where I'm at this point. With work, things are pretty much staying the same at this point. I'm still going to work every other week, working from home the other week, which has its pros and cons, as we has previously discussed. Um, but at this point, that's pretty much where I'm at. Things seem to be improving a little bit with my father, which is obviously good for him, but it's also a big weight off of my shoulders as well, giving myself a little bit more freedom to work on my studies and obviously focus on my work. And work is still pretty much around the same. While everything else is changing, work is pretty much just chugging along around the same track at this point. So that's pretty much where I'm at this point since our last session. I've taken a lot of what you said and I put it into motion at this point.
Well, I commend you on that. I commend you on taking the necessary steps to make the change for your personal life, well, you can't really make a change for your work life, but your personal life so that you can find time to, tackle through your feelings so that you can actually, get time and don't not feel as stressed for your work. Um, I think it's awesome that you have been writing down your thoughts. Sometimes just even jotting down something that we feel or a random thought that we may have um, can have a tremendous impact. So I think it's awesome that you started doing that. Um, as far as your dad,
Hmm.
how have you been using the extra time that he with his independence rather, how have you been using the extra time to tend to your personal?
Sure. So, like we talked about previously, I found myself not having a lot of time to just kind of, I don't want to say do nothing because we're never really doing not doing anything, but I kind of just like some me time almost. And what I mean by that is either just even putting on the television for a little bit, just putting on a show, or going on my phone for a little bit to just watch a clip of something. I find myself that's becoming, I found that as something that I didn't really know I missed that much
Mm.
is when I wasn't able to really do that. So I find myself, I don't have time to watch, multiple episodes of a show or anything like that, but I find myself trying to just clear my mind of the day, watch an episode of a show or something, on my phone. And I find myself being able to do that a little bit more now because there's a little
Okay.
bit of responsibility on my plate. And I find that that's really being more beneficial to me because I find myself after I'm able to like watch that show a little bit and just relax and clear my head of the day, I find myself in a better kind of mental space because I'm able to attack, like if I have to do some schoolwork or I have some work related stuff that I need to bring home with me, I find that after I clear my mind a little bit, I'm able to kind of find that motivation and kind of get back into, get my homework done or get some of my work stuff done. And I find that using that free time to just kind of focus on myself in terms of watching a show or going for a walk even outside, it's getting a little colder now, but if it's a nice day out, just going outside, walking around the block for a little bit, I find is becoming very beneficial towards myself at this point.
So what I'm hearing you say is you have realized the benefit of missing out on those little times where you can clear your head.
Absolutely.
Um, and especially since, you're looking for some order, you can see the correlation between not having the time and not having the order as well. Um, so it sounds like you've come up with these little pockets of opportunities to get just a refresher, a breather, so to speak, so that you can tackle your responsibilities more efficiently. And that is awesome. That is awesome.
For sure.
Okay, so um, how has it been with your concerns about regarding work?
Sure. So things, as I said a little bit earlier, they're kind of staying the same at this point. There hasn't been a drastic difference between my work in terms of what's going on at work and bringing stuff home from work, but I'm finding myself being able to handle it a little bit better just as I'm getting more, I don't want to say comfortable with it, but kind of just repeating what's happening day in and day out. I'm kind of becoming to the realization that like things are okay. Like it's not an ideal situation at this point, obviously, with everything going on, but I'm finding myself, I think it kind of almost goes back to having that free time a little bit more, where I'm able to kind of think a little bit more clearly. And I'm not, I don't know, I'm not so stressed where I'm like every little thing is, could be a tense moment or could be a little stressful situation. I'm finding myself being able to just kind of, I don't want to say let things go. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but not really diving too deep into each issue or diving too deep into something that could be bothering me. Kind of just letting things happen at this point. And if there is something that bothers me, I'm learning to adjust and just learning to kind of adapt to it. Because obviously with work, I'm not able to change everything that maybe I think is best, but is not in place. So I'm kind of
Right.
just at the point where I'm more accepting, I would say at this point, and just I always go to work with a positive attitude every day. I don't want to, be in a bad mood or anything like that. Each day is a fresh start. So I'm finding myself being able to go into each day with a more positive outlook, and I'm finding that to be beneficial when I'm at work because, if something does come up that is bothering me a little bit, I'm able to kind of just brush it off and just move on and know that at the end of the day, I'm in a good space for myself, and I know no matter what I'm doing the best that I possibly can.
Well, part of self-care is acknowledging your own feelings.
Mhm.
So, is there a way for us to get to a point where you're not just brushing off your feelings? Because I think that gets into going against your self-care, and just brushing it off, sort of rolling with the punches, as we say. It may seem like a solution, but oftentimes it causes a buildup of our emotions. So, what are some things that you think that you can do to deal with the emotion in the now, but not have it take over your entire day?
Sure. So a lot of the times I find if I have an issue with something at work or something going on, I find I tend to keep it to myself and I really don't express that to anyone else really. And it's kind of, well, I could trust my family or my girlfriend or whoever I speak with. Like they really don't understand it as much because they're not obviously at work with me and they're not understanding the full on situation. So I think one way for myself, instead of just brushing it off or just kind of, I don't know, just kind of almost forgetting the problem exists, something I could potentially do is speak with somebody at work, some of my colleagues, or not even, I wouldn't say I would go up to my boss, but like, just somebody in the same type of environment as myself and just bounce like how I'm feeling off. Maybe they're feeling the same way as me, but we just don't know it because we haven't expressed it to each other. Or if I say something to them, maybe they could tell me that, maybe I'm thinking of it wrong and I'm very open to change and I'm not
Mhm.
stuck in my opinion or, very, I don't want to say selfish, but stuck in my ways, I guess is the proper word for it. I don't want to say I'm stuck in my ways. So I'm open to hearing other people's thoughts and their feelings. And maybe if other people are feeling the exact same way that I am about certain things, maybe that is something that we could ultimately bring up to leadership or people above us to maybe find a common ground or find some solution for the problem. I
Mhm.
think that could definitely be something that I could definitely incorporate into my daily, or not daily, but whenever something does come up, just incorporate some more speaking time with some of my colleagues or some of the people in the same type of office environment as me. I think that could definitely be something that would be a benefit for myself and potentially for my colleagues as well if they're also feeling some sort of animosity or stress just based off of what was going on at work.
Yes, I agree. Sometimes we have a way of thinking that we're alone in a situation, and we tend to hold it in, as you stated. But part of self-care and part of what I would like you to work on is acknowledging your emotions in the now.
Hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be positive or negative. It just has to be what's currently happening to you right now. Um, like you said, a situation that you may describe at work, someone else may be feeling that same exact situation, but may be feeling like they're alone as well.
Hmm.
So not only would you be helping you, you may be in turn helping the work environment for many others as well. So I'd like you to work on acknowledging those feelings because they stem from somewhere.
Hmm.
They're not just flying through the sky feelings. They stem from a behavior, an observation, something. And I think it's worth exploring those emotions in the now so that you can maybe eliminate the stimulus that's causing that emotion, that's causing that feeling. And by you eliminating that, you may be helping the whole office. It may be something as simple as, I don't know, the papers being loaded in the middle of the day as opposed to in the morning. It may speed up productivity. So I don't part of the self-care, I want you to focus on you.
Hmm.
What I hear from you is that you are very easygoing uh, because you don't like confrontation, because you don't like a messy situation. However, I also hear that you often put your emotions aside because you don't want a messy situation and because you don't want confrontation.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, that becomes an issue for us personally, because we don't actually deal with those emotions that we're putting to the side.
Hmm.
So I wanted to work with you today with what we call the WDEP method. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Just be as honest and open as you can.
Sure.
Um, what is it that what is it that you want to do right now? Where do you see yourself going in the future? Where would you like to go in the future?
Hmm.
What what would you like to see yourself doing? What do you want for yourself?
Sure. That's a tough question, I would say, but definitely something that has come up on my mind a couple of times, obviously every day. I really enjoy working. I work in a school. I work at Mercy College. I work in the admissions office, and I really enjoy working with the high school students in terms of the college process and just kind of dealing, like helping them, assisting them with that. So ultimately, I do want to work in either the high school setting or remain in the college setting. So the goal of mine is to just find as much experience and continue to grow as a counselor, almost, I would say, in terms of just helping not, I wouldn't say the youth because they're not technically young, they're maybe 16 or 17, but helping
Mhm.
the next generation of upcoming students in terms of picking a college and just getting on the right path. I think it's very important to be able to be not technically a role model, but someone that sets a good example for people in that type of situation in terms of the high school or college setting, because they have so many directions that they can go at that age, and if you lead them on the right path, they could truly change their life forever. Um, we really don't really. I think I always tell myself that I don't. We don't really know how much each conversation truly means to each student. While speaking with someone, it could go in one ear and out the other, but just a few words that you say to a specific student could ultimately resonate with them for a very long time. And I find myself constantly reminding myself of that. Just I try to be very particular and smart with my words when talking to those type of students because I understand how if I say one wrong thing that just happens to slip out of my mouth, I can understand how that could really impact someone at that age because they're so young and they're just trying to really get by at this point. I find myself ultimately just really, obviously, I want well for myself, but I find myself constantly wanting to get better myself so I could better others, I guess is the perfect way kind of to describe that. The more that I work and study and do all these things, I ultimately do it because I try to benefit others, I guess I would say. So in the future, I do want to basically summarize what I'm saying. I do ultimately want to find myself in a high school setting or remaining in a college setting and just constantly just trying to help the younger generation of students.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that you seriously want to work with the youth of today, helping them figure out their path and helping them find their way and their individuality. Um, Something I heard you say that stood out was that you want to better yourself. How do you see yourself
Mhm.
bettering yourself? Like what would the better you look like?
100%. That's something that I kind of ask myself a lot too, because I ultimately don't think I ultimately have a finished product of what I ultimately want to be as myself. I don't think there's anything that I don't know how to describe it as. I'm trying to word it properly. I don't think I know my finished picture yet, but I'm working to try to get to that point.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to just ultimately, in all aspects of my life, just try to ultimately become a better person. I don't mean I don't I have I'm not like down on myself. I don't mean like I think in my head that I'm a bad person, but I'm just constantly trying to improve in all aspects, whether that is simply just being a better friend to some of my friends, or being a better boyfriend, being a better coworker. And I know it's hard to say without really giving specific examples, but just being a better friend to just, at this point in our lives, it's very hard to find time to really, go spend some time with some of my friends like I used to when we were younger. But I am finding myself just trying to reach out to them a little bit more because obviously things are a little bit more challenging now. And even if we're not able to hang out or talk for that long, just to say, hey, how are things going? Uh, you know, I'm, let's at some point, let's try to meet up at some point. And I'm finding myself really enjoying that and being able to have some really good conversations with people that I ultimately haven't had a lot of talk with recently. Um, Another thing would be in terms of trying to better myself, I'm really trying to focus hard, as we've talked about previously, on my studies and with school. Um, Really, I study very hard. I work very hard with all that I do, but I'm ultimately not sure if that's the best approach for me at times because I find myself studying so hard and putting a lot of pressure on myself to do well that ultimately it could be detrimental to my success, that I'm putting too much pressure on myself, I think, at times. So I think in as weird as it sounds, simply taking a step back from my schoolwork a little bit and giving myself more time to just breathe. And, I know I'm ultimately still going to get my schoolwork done. I'm always going to not wait till the last minute to do it, but taking a step back for me could ultimately better me in the long run. So those are just some of the examples that I could think of at this point that are just some ways that I think I could really ultimately better myself.
Okay, I definitely see that working on your self-care is a primary thing for you, as
Definitely.
well as spending more getting being able to do the things that you enjoy doing.
100%.
Okay, so what are you doing currently? I know you mentioned just taking these little pockets of time to yourself to jot things down or to just watch an episode or a show or a video of some sort. Um, what are you doing currently um, to get to your goal of bettering yourself?
Hmm.
What can you what can you say you're substantially doing right now that is getting you towards that goal of bettering yourself, being a better friend, being a better uh, boyfriend, being a better son? Sorry.
Yeah,
What can you say you're doing right now?
sure. I'm trying to ultimately kind of take things a little bit slower than I have been doing, I've noticed. Ultimately, I like to get things done very quickly. I don't like to wait or put things off or procrastinate or anything like that. Whatever, and that's just not in terms of schoolwork. I know the procrastination ultimately stems from school, but in all aspects of my life, I'm trying to just take things slower and just ultimately really appreciate all I have that's currently going on, because no matter how stressed out or, if I'm feeling anxious or something, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that ultimately have it worse. And I realize that, at the end of the day, I'm very lucky to have exactly what I have at this point. So I'm finding myself becoming more self-aware, I would say, and
Okay.
just really embracing that. Taking that time to like talk to my parents a little bit, because I'm very lucky to still have them around. Just being able to talk to them and just go over, even if it's a simple conversation of, hey, how was your day, anything eventful come up, or what do you have planned for the weekend, or what are you doing tomorrow. I find myself just having those type of talks just are kind of refreshing and easy. It kind of eases my mind a little bit, because
Hmm.
I'm someone that likes to be very organized and what's going on ahead of me. I don't really like going into the next day or the next couple of days unsure of what is ahead of me. I like to
Right.
really I really like to know like what is currently happening or what's on my agenda for tomorrow. So I'm finding myself being able to speak with either my parents or my girlfriend or my coworkers a little bit more in terms of just kind of figuring out where everyone is at. That is something I've really emphasized doing recently, because as I've said in the past, I ultimately for a while found myself, I wouldn't say shy, but kept to myself with a lot of my feelings and kept
Hmm.
to myself, just kept on my own path and did my own thing, and then really didn't worry about what else was really going on at that point, which ultimately, I guess looking back, really wasn't fair to some others, even though I really wasn't doing it intentionally.
Right.
Um, I ultimately think that is something that could have bothered some others. So I'm finding myself just really trying to, as weird as it sounds, just speak more with the people that I really care about and just expressing how I feel. I know they're not going to judge me, and I know they're not going to be one to, make me feel bad. They're there to help. That's the point of having all these people in my life. So simply going out of my way to just have a little bit more conversation, I ultimately found to be very beneficial and something that I definitely want to continue, because without that, I think I would ultimately find myself kind of reverting to what I was previously doing in terms of bottling up how I was feeling, which, as
Hmm.
we all know, sometimes that is good, to not exactly say what you're feeling, but ultimately at some point you're going to explode and you just kind of have to really get everything out. So I think
Right.
just simply having those conversations with the people I care about most are some big steps for me. And it sounds a little weird because it ultimately doesn't seem like a huge step. For myself personally, I think it really is something that is pretty significant for myself at this point, and something that I definitely want to continue on as I continue on throughout this weird time where we're not really able to go out or go like live a normal life at this point. So I think that's just simple conversation is something that can ultimately be really beneficial for me as we continue.
So what I notice is that you have sat and you've thought about this. You're very open and honest with what your habits are, what your defense mechanisms are, and you've thought about ways to counteract that defense mechanism and those thoughts and those behaviors, and that is commendable, and I commend you on that. Um, what I also hear is that just the little things like communicating more
Hmm.
or just utilizing the resources and the support system that you have in your life, you realize the difference that it can actually make. And that is a very powerful realization because the people around us are there to help us and to help us make it through our lives. The people in our world, they influence our world just as much as whether we like them to or not, they influence our world. So in that aspect, going to your support system is very beneficial to you opening up and just dealing with your behaviors and your thoughts and your feelings, dealing with it more productively by involving the people around you that influence those things.
Yeah.
So that's an awesome realization. And I like the fact that you said it was raising your self-awareness
Hmm.
because ultimately that's the goal here, is for you to be more in tune with you.
Hmm.
Because as I said before, I noticed that there's a theme of you always being whatever everyone else needs.
Hmm.
So for the goal of m- um, maintaining your self-care, self-awareness is definitely necessary. So I definitely encourage you to embark on that journey more. Um, just sitting thinking about the way you used to think about certain things, and making the choice to actually create a different kind of thinking and behavior in your mind.
100%.
Okay. So if do you think that your habits so far are leading you towards your goal of being a better friend, being a better boyfriend, being a better son, raising your self awareness? Do you think that the little changes that you've made, or the changes rather, because we can't call them little because they're changes,
Right.
whether we think they're small or not, they're still changes. So has the changes that you've made gotten you to at least a little bit closer to your goal of becoming a better you?
I would definitely say yes to that. I would say if you asked me that same question maybe a month ago, I probably wouldn't have had the same answer to that.
Mhm.
But just doing the little things like we talked about, just as I said, just trying to find some more time for myself in terms of just relaxing, as weird as that sounds, because I really like what you said previously, that I find myself just really trying to help others mostly, and sometimes without realizing it, that's hurting me in a way.
Mhm.
Because I'm realizing that if I'm not 100% like mentally or physically or anything like that, then meanwhile I'm helping others, it's really not beneficial towards myself in a way because I'm not focusing on taking care of myself. So while I could be helping somebody else, I'm ultimately hurting myself in that same process. So I think I've come to that realization, which kind of comes back to being more self-aware. Um, I would say I am definitely getting closer to the person that I definitely want to become, because as I said, I ultimately still don't know the person I ultimately want to become, but I'm
Mhm.
working to try to just I'm definitely comfortable and happy with my progress, and I like the direction I'm going. And if I keep on this track and just keep doing the small little things that I'm finding myself being able to do on a regular daily routine, that I'm finding that I am very satisfied with where I'm at this point, and in a weird way, not in a weird way, but I would say I'm ultimately excited now to see what the future holds because who knows at this point what's going to continue to happen. But if I know that if I keep on this same path that I'm at now, I'm ultimately going to be successful. And I don't mean to that to come off in a cocky or any type of way, but I do think being confident in yourself is a very important aspect. Not cocky, but confident, I think is a
Right.
very important thing to realize your self-worth and realize that, you can be proud of what you've accomplished and be proud of where you're headed or what you've previously done. You're not gloating or anything like that. But I do think that just doing the simple things of, like we talked about, writing notes down and just finding some more time for myself, I do think that it's definitely led me closer to be ultimately becoming the person that I guess I could say I hope to one day be. But as I said, we just continue to just try to be a better person every single day.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome when we get to a point where we start realizing our own power
Hmm.
in a lot of the choices that we make for ourselves, and in a lot of the ways that our life seems to go.
Hmm.
We tend to feel powerless, but when we realize that choice is really a powerful thing.
Definitely.
So I'd like to create a plan with
Sure.
you.
I think that's great.
This plan is going to be very short, I'd
Sure.
say. Um, I say that because I understand that you already have a lot on your plate,
Hmm.
but I just wanted us to come up with a few things that we could do to help alleviate some of the stress that you have with all of your responsibilities. I know you mentioned you jotting down a few things ever so often throughout the day. You mentioned just getting those little pockets of time to
Hmm.
watch your episodes. You also mentioned trying to meet up with friends,
Yeah.
just trying to randomly meet up with friends whenever you have the time. Those are all great. So how can we put those into actual goals and plans? What are some ways that we can uh, implement journaling
Hmm.
on a consistent basis? What do you think about that? How can you fit that into your schedule?
I think I definitely can. I do find myself when I get home from work just trying to decompress a little bit and just relax. I don't think writing things down right as soon as I get home would be beneficial for myself because I'm still kind of in that work mode, like
Hmm.
haven't really relaxed yet. I think for myself, just either blocking out maybe 15, 20 minutes just right before I go to bed each night, I
Okay.
think could be very beneficial for me because I ultimately think that going to bed with a clear head could be obviously very beneficial because at this point, I'm sure everyone's kind of in the same boat where sleep is a little hard to come by at this point.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on that, getting that full 8 hours of sleep is a lot less frequent than it probably should be. So I think blocking out maybe 15, 20 minutes, sometimes less depending on the day or sometimes more depending on what's currently going on. I
Hmm.
think blocking out that 15 to 20 minutes and just writing things down. Like I said, it's not very substantial, the things I write down. I don't mean substantial is probably not the right word. It's not very lengthy, but it is, in a weird way, it is impactful to me because all the words I write, I find myself being very particular in the words that I write. I was a journalism major for my undergrad, so I always love to write and get my thoughts out and just kind of express exactly what I'm feeling. So I think just continuing to just write things down, and as the day goes on, maybe I will write a little bit more of how things are going. But at this point, just simply writing a couple sentences or and just simply writing down, for an example, a couple things I've written are, today was a great day. I was able to accomplish so and so at work. Tomorrow I have this on my plate, or tomorrow we have to handle this, or today this didn't go well, or just, I really think getting my thoughts in line and writing down exactly how I'm feeling is definitely something that I can continue to do. I also think another plan that we could potentially put in place would be writing down goals for myself for the week.
Okay.
Um, I think that could something be very beneficial for me because ultimately what I'm currently doing is just kind of going through each week and just making sure I have everything taken care of because like we said, we all have so much on our plate. I want to make sure that I'm handling everything, but I'm
Hmm.
ultimately not giving myself a goal or any type of thing. So I'm finding myself doing all of these tasks and I'm doing them, to the best of my ability, but I'm finding myself not challenging myself in a way. And I'm kind
Okay.
of just getting it done just to do it. So it's one thing I could cross out. I think ultimately building goals for myself in terms of like I'll try to put it into a work related thing, like being able to speak with 6 high school students in like a week or something like
Okay.
that. Just kind of coming up with a specific goal oriented thing to kind of motivate myself. And like if I'm falling behind, I can remind myself, like, hey, you set that goal, try to hit that by Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I ultimately think coming up with goals in terms of work would something that would be very beneficial for me and could ultimately stuff I write down. Hey, by Tuesday, make sure you have 10 college or high school transcripts into your system. Like just stuff like that, I think could ultimately really be beneficial for me.
Okay. All right. So we I hear you about the free write
Yeah,
for before bed. Okay. So are you okay with 10 to 15 minutes before bed of free write at least 3 times a week?
absolutely. I think that would be something that would be really beneficial for me. And I think
Okay.
starting off with 3 would be good because it doesn't give me so much responsibility to do every single night, but just enough to really express how I'm feeling. And I think that would be a really good starting point for sure.
Okay. Okay. Good. Because I want us to come up with a goal that you can actually with a practice that you can actually implement into your daily life. I don't want it to be another burden
Sure.
on you. So as far as writing goals,
Mhm.
how do you feel about the use of a daily planner
Mhm.
where at the beginning of the week you can maybe, I mean, I don't know when your week begins,
Mhm.
um, but maybe on a Sunday night before the actual work week begins, you can just jot down your goals for the week.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that? How
I
would that be work for you?
I think that would be great. So my week technically it's Monday through Friday. My work week. So I do think I do have a lot more time to myself. I do have to work some occasional Saturdays, but I do find myself having a lot more free time on Sundays than any other day throughout the week. So I really use that day to, if I really have to catch up on my work or even schoolwork or anything like that, I really use that day to do that. But I do think coming up with a plan for the week on Sunday nights would be really beneficial. Like for myself, I almost do that, but I guess I really didn't even realize I did in a way that I meal prep my meals for the week on Sunday
Mhm.
nights. And I guess in a way that kind of is planning already, but I guess I really
Yeah.
never put the two together with
Mhm.
the two. So I do definitely think that since I've been doing meal prepping for a while now for the week, so I really do think just incorporating writing my like the week ahead for myself. I almost don't feel it would be a burden. I almost feel it would just be something that is very beneficial for myself
Mhm.
because that'll eliminate 2 things right off the top of my head. I won't have to worry about what I'm eating for the week, and then I also will ultimately know what lies ahead of me.
Right.
And I, I don't even think that, as I said, I don't think it would even be a burden so much in terms of it would ultimately be beneficial. And once I get in the habit of doing it, it becomes so second nature to me that I really wouldn't even think too much about it. And it would just become part of my daily routine. And that is definitely something that I would probably end up doing on Sunday nights or Sunday through in the afternoon, just kind of depending on how the day goes. And I think that would really give me a fresh start to the week and a positive outlook, already knowing what's ahead of me and already having 2 things taken care of and 2 things I really know I don't have to really worry that much about throughout the week because I've already prepared for it.
Right. It will, the planner, just the use of the planner tends to give you a sense of time management where you can give yourself the allotted time to complete certain tasks
Yeah,
efficiently and
I
not have to
completely agree.
feel like you're overextending yourself on one and not putting enough effort into the other. It kind of organizes you. So, um, okay. So writing goals for the week on in your daily planner on a Sunday. Okay, so I'm gonna tackle the relaxation part of your narrative of what
Sure.
you've been telling me. I would like to recommend this relaxation app called Calm.
Okay.
It's very short, 5-10 minutes. You kind of do a breathing exercise. Um, you can definitely download it on your phone. It's
Hmm.
available to Apple, Android, any of those platforms.
Hmm.
And I'd like you to try to implement this On the days where it's a little tougher to appear nice,
Mm-hmm.
to push those feelings to the back, just take time, take 5 to 10 minutes to yourself. Do one of these relaxation techniques on the app, and it can definitely help you to be able to deal with what's ahead clearer. You would have more of a clearer picture of how you feel, a clearer picture of where you would like to go, and you can give your full self to whatever situation you're lending yourself to,
Sure.
rather than giving a fraction of yourself because you haven't really, given yourself time to regroup. So I just like to recommend that to you, for the days where it's a little harder to maybe writing, journaling that day is just the words are not coming out for whatever reason.
Sure.
Um, I urge you to use that, because I do think it's imperative that you have that time to regroup before lending yourself to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
because we tend to give a lot more to others than we give to ourselves. So I just want you to understand that you have a choice in the way that things go in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And although I sense that, or I see that you're very helpful person, and you take pride in how you help others, but you also have to be aware of how you help yourself.
For sure.
So today was a very fruitful session.
Definitely.
We discussed a lot. It was very productive. We discussed how your dad has gotten better. We discussed, him being able to do a little more on his own. So that gives you a little more time and a lot less worry about him.
For sure.
Um, we discussed your work. You work 1 week on and 1 week off. Not really much autonomy there. You sort of have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I hear that you're much more comfortable with it from the last two sessions.
Definitely.
Um, that can be from just getting used to the new way of doing things. Or it can just be, finding some sort of routine within the chaos to try to just make it through. Um, we spoke about you working on expressing the emotions that you feel in the now, in the workplace, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a big blow up, but just making a statement, communicating your feelings. We spoke about that. We spoke about you finding little pockets of time, to yourself, improving on your self-care routine. We spoke about you finding little pockets of time to deal with yourself before lending yourself to other people. We also spoke about you wanting to better yourself as the many hats that you play in your life, as a friend, as a son, as a boyfriend, as a student, as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we spoke about you taking things slower,
Yeah.
not being so readily, um, not so aggressive about getting things done, taking a step back.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about your raising your self awareness and how that has helped you in realizing your choice and your power in a lot of situations. We also spoke about the fact that you're excited about the future, even though you don't quite have a picture of what that looks like in its totality. You're very excited about the future and what the future holds for you, and also very excited about becoming who you want to become in the future. We also came up with 3 goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read them for you. So the first goal is a 10 to 15 minute free write before bed,
Yep.
at least 3 times a week. Okay.
Absolutely.
Second goal is writing goals for the week in a daily planner on Sunday evenings. And the last goal would be to use the relaxation app Calm
Yeah.
5 minutes for 5 to 10 minutes to regroup.
Perfect.
Okay. So, how do you feel about the goals? Do you,
I think all
they're
the
good
goals
for you?
I think the goals are obtainable, and I
Mm-hmm.
do think all three of them will be ultimately very beneficial towards my ultimate goal of just trying to figure out the person that I ultimately want to be.
All right. Okay. Good, good, good. I'm glad. So next session, I'd like to see the daily planner.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily need to see the free write, but I would like feedback on how that went in your
Yep.
first week of implementation. So just a briefing as
Sure.
to how it was, how you were able to fit it into your week, and also about the relaxation app. I just want you to tell me your experience with that the next time we speak to each other.
Absolutely.
Right. So for your homework,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like you to use the daily planner.
Sure.
Use the daily planner, organize yourself, write down whatever, even if if you view it as a small goal, it's still a goal. Write it down. Even if it's, I will talk to, I don't know, I will talk to my friend today.
Sure.
On a Wednesday, I'll give her a phone call, things like that, little things, so that you can get in the habit of organizing your time.
Definitely.
So, like I said, this was an awesome session. It was awesome speaking to you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with me?
Think we pretty much covered it all. I think we did all right. I think we pretty much covered everything that I really felt like I needed to just get off my chest.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So, um, I we went over the goals and the homework. So I will see you next week.
Sounds good to me.
Uh, Try to implement as many of the goals as possible into your into your week. And I will see you next week, and we will definitely explore this further.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.